All right, so joining us today is Durga from Cast Software. Durga is the Senior Director of Customer Success at Cast. So very excited to have you on today. And yeah, it's great to have you on.
Thank you so much, Sam. Nice
Of
to,
course.
yeah.
Yeah, so before we start in here, something I like to ask all of our guests is obviously within the customer success space, just curious what led you into the customer success space. I know that you had some past experience on the engineering side. So, what's influenced your career and where you're at right now?
Yeah. So I have been playing multiple roles as part of working for various organizations. I have played a pure play implementation role where I have implemented the products for various end customers. Then I moved on to the pure product based organizations where I was involved in making sure the products which the R&D is developing is able to meet the needs of the end customers, and customers are really seeing the value with these product implementations across the use cases which is applicable to these customers. So this is where I felt the need for me to put more efforts in terms of sharpening the skill sets and working close to the customers to understand what their pain points are, how the products and the strategy could be customized so that the customers leverage the products to the relevant use cases and achieve the maximum benefits. So that is how I transitioned to this role, and I have been finding it very interesting. And that's where the rubber hits the road. That is where you see the action on the ground. This is how I transitioned to this role.
Definitely. And I know that there are a lot of challenges within the customer experience space right now. Obviously, you've probably seen a majority of them. I'm curious, what is one major challenge that you've seen as a CX leader, or a challenge that you've seen that you think a lot of other leaders maybe aren't prepared for right now?
Yeah, I think from a customer experience perspective, the most important challenge I see is in terms of continuous value creation. So if you look at any product implementation across the organizations, if it is a one-off value, it looks fine, but the customer may not continue with your product or service if they don't see the value on a continuous basis. So it is, as a customer success leader or a customer experience leader, it is of very important aspect to focus how I continuously generate value for our customer through our services or platforms. I think that is a very crucial aspect which every customer experience leader should look at when they're working with their customers.
For sure. And since you mentioned continued value and how, like, building that, how do you do that with your teams, and how do you see that from maybe a traditional like engineering lens? I know that with your past experience there, I'm curious how you see it and how you continue to build value for your customers.
Yeah, so it's a very important question. It's when we talk about engaging with customers, we clearly know why they're procuring the product in terms of what they want to achieve at the end of the day. So when we start the engagement, right, from the moment go when the contract gets signed, the moment we onboard them onto the product, we clearly articulate the value which they are going to get at each and every milestone. And we have clearly defined framework where we have key parameters which we look at it on a continuous basis using automation as well as interview based process. We capture these metrics and put it into this framework to measure the value at each and every milestone, and not only measuring the value but also validate it with customer, and they take their buy-in to make sure whatever value we are documenting is approved by customer. And then that is how we continuously evolve the process and do continuous value creation and continuous value measurement to make sure the customer sees the value, and this also improves the stickiness, right? So at the end of the day, we want the customer to be more sticky to our platform or services. So that is the only way we see that customer can be more stickier.
And so you were talking a little bit about how important the onboarding process is along with automation. How do you ensure that your team still feels deeply connected to the customer pain as that automation and product automation increases?
Yes, it's very important. So what we see is from a customer success perspective, also the lot of research which establishes a fact that it has to be personalized connections. So when though there is an automation process for capturing certain key data points, it is also important for us to build personal connections at various customer organizations. So you could be working with an engineer who is implementing on the ground to the executive sponsor who is looking at the overall product implementation, product adoption strategy. So we definitely need to have a customized, personalized connections. One to make sure the onboarding happens smooth, and at the same time the value is being generated and communicated to various stakeholders within the customer organization. So that is very important. Automation, though it captures the key metrics which are required for you to understand the overall health of the customer, personalized connection is even more important to make sure the value is continuously monitored, measured, and the customer sees the value with our partnerships.
For sure. And with personalized connection, I know that you mentioned that a few times. Would you say that is from connecting with customers live, or is that in product, or how do you go about keeping that personalized connection even when automation increases?
Yeah, so from a personalized connection, I mean that in this remote world, it is little trickier to have a face-to-face connection, but we always see a greater value when we have a in-person connect, right? Where we discuss, we have a regular cadence which is being set up, right? Like a
Mm,
weekly cadence,
right.
where we make sure that we meet the customer and to go over what we have defined in terms of success criteria for our partnership to succeed, and then run them through these key matrices and agree upon the value and also on the next steps. So that is how we set up the personal cadence, set up the in-person connects to improve the value and to improve the communication.
Definitely. And as you're building out those internal frameworks with kind of documenting product knowledge and internal processes becoming very important with AI and AI agents in particular, what's your strategy and your team's strategy in 2025 to build strong documentation and knowledge bases at scale?
Yeah, I think it's a very relevant and very important question. In the current strategy, there is no meeting or no conversation which doesn't happen, which starts with AI and ends with an AI. So the AI agents have been making huge noise around, but it has to be very contextual. So we cannot take a cookie cutter approach. So AI strategy for company A can be completely different to AI strategy for company B, because the nature of the business is different, the nature of requirements are completely different. So as the co-pilots and large language models are continuing to evolve, there is a huge potential which AI agents can bring in terms of automation. Just to give an example, a lot of SaaS companies like Salesforce have already implemented a strategy of implementing AI agents to gather customer related metrics, which can be plugged into their analytics engine to do prediction in terms of their customer health. So I think this is the strategy which I see most of the organizations are going to take. How I can inculcate the AI agents, combine it with predictive analytics, and automatically determine the customer's health in terms of how the customer health from a customer success standpoint, and take steps to remediate or to make changes to the strategy.
For sure. And I guess what tools right now, I know that you mentioned AI a little bit generally there, but what tools are you guys using in particular to document product knowledge and those internal processes to feed into AI on your side?
So we have our custom tools and frameworks, and we have a custom configuration with open source LLM models, and we have built layers on top of it using our custom frameworks, and we use those frameworks. We have integration. We have worked also with Azure OpenAI, so we have integrations with these third party LLMs and customized it with our own requirements and use cases, and using those to automate the documentation process and knowledge capturing.
So is this mainly for the product itself or for internal processes as well on the customer success side? I know that with the product, obviously you guys are using those like large language models and different things there for AI. On the customer success side, are you guys using anything internally for like internal knowledge bases, maybe?
Internal knowledge bases, we are evaluating as we speak. And there are certain experiments which we are doing with large language models in terms of automating how we deal the entire customer success process, how we can automate certain value creation, how we can generate documentation using these AI agents. So these are certain things which we are experimenting and conducting pilots with few customers.
Yeah, I think that's great. Appreciate you covering that a little bit. I want to switch gears a little bit here. And just one question I'd like to ask is how do you ensure that customer feedback meaningfully influences your guys' roadmap? I know that I ask this question a lot, and I think there's a lot of different answers. Some are a little bit short sighted and they are like Slack channels or things like that. Do you guys have a full scaled out process of how you gather customer feedback and then add this to your roadmap, or is it a little bit open ended there still in the process?
No, we do have a clearly defined process where we capture the customer feedback. So, as part of the customer success, we are the first field of defense, right? So, we are in the first line of defense. And just to give an example, there was a scenario where I was working with one of the customer who had a competing product with overlapping capabilities. It is very important for customer success to understand those situations, clearly document what is that overlapping functionality, and then take it back to the research and development or product development and look at prioritizing these feedbacks and implementing it. And we were able, in that particular example, we were able to completely replace the competing product with our product, which was very appreciated by the customer, because a lot of customers do spend money on products with overlap functionalities, right? So there's no point in customer paying 2x the cost for the same capabilities. So as a customer success, it is very important for us to understand and then take the feedback and prioritize internally. So we have very streamlined process and frameworks and associated tool sets to capture these feedbacks and take it up with our product team and prioritize accordingly to meet the customer needs.
Definitely. So I guess when you were talking about that situation that you recently dealt with, being able to be that first line of defense and identify that there was maybe some tool consolidation that your team could build so there was no overlap. Yeah, I think that's great. And then I just last question here that I was hoping to ask for the episode here is how do you turn individual support conversations into org-wide learning? And I know that this may be a little bit different from your lens just because I know that you operate a global customer success team. So curious to hear this from a remote aspect as well.
Sure. Like I mentioned, Sam, we are the first line of defense. We definitely not, we talked about the capturing feedback, but beyond the capturing feedback, but there are also challenges in terms of implementation, right? There are support process which is involved, which has various SLAs attached to the various support problems, right? There are SLAs which are clearly defined. And it's our objective to make sure we adhere to these SLAs when we are talking to the customers based upon the priority of the challenge which customer is facing. And at the same time, we have a knowledge base wherein we document all the support challenges, support issues as part of the knowledge base. And this knowledge base is something which we also enable our customers so that they are clearly understand if they face a situation like this, how do they go back and either solve themselves or reach out to us for any further help. So it's a very clearly defined process in terms of various tools, associated process, and associated people who can work with customers to streamline and create knowledge base which can be completely reused.
And I guess since knowledge bases are so important kind of as we move forward here, and especially it sounds like, especially in your organization, how are you guys building out those knowledge bases from maybe the support tickets and having that workflow right from the support chats all the way to when it actually hits the knowledge base? Are you guys documenting that manually or are there tools in place to automate that for you?
So there are tools in place to automate it. It's a combination, it's a hybrid approach, I would say. It's not completely automated or completely manual. It's a combination of tools and manual approach. So we do have help desk portals wherein we document this. The entire process is managed through the help desk or Zendesk portal. And in the portal, we do have automations to capture the history and build in automation on top of these support portals to gather the relevant insights and create documentation related to each of these process, each of these support challenges.
That's right. I think we are fairly close to time here. Just wanted to ask as we wrap up here if there's any other questions that you'd like to ask or let the audience know before we go. Obviously, it was great having you on, but just wanted to give you any last or final thoughts here.
Yeah, so I think I just want to clearly call out that customer success or customer experience is a very critical function. And I'm sure most of the audience would know about how Amazon, with being so much customer obsessed, have captured the entire retail market in US, right? And also globally. So customer obsession, customer experience, customer success is very critical function. And there's a lot of research, whether it is from Gartner or Forrester, which clearly calls out that having a customer success function is very critical for sustainable growth for any organization. So it is very key function I would call out that each and every organization should clearly invest and develop these capabilities internally.
Definitely. It was great having you on today. Like I said, would love to maybe have you on another time here sometime in the future, but really appreciated all your insights. I think there was a lot of interesting topics that we covered and that our audience will like to hear. So it was great talking to you today, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Thank you so much, Sam. Thank you.
Thanks, Durga. Have a great day.